Hello, I'm Rosie Vision. I like to make videos about traditionally girly media. Obviously, anyone can enjoy them, but media targeted towards female audiences tends to not get the attention it deserves, in my opinion. I like to take a closer look at these creations and discuss them with you all, but admittedly through slightly rose-tinted glasses. After all, we all deserve some magic in our lives. The topic of this video is something that has haunted me for over a decade now. For years I've been silent, but I can't keep it up any longer. I've occasionally seen a few people online echo some of the points I'm about to make, and there are a few other videos on the topic. But this was after nearly a decade of nothingness, and I have no idea why it's taken this long. So I'm making this video to chip in with my own thoughts. Today we're going to talk about the time Disney stole from a Barbie film and got away with it too. A bit of an exaggeration, I'll admit, but I still think it's worth talking about. Quick disclaimer before we get into it, I absolutely love both of the movies we'll be comparing today, and I do think that there are two very different films. However, I have to say there are some striking similarities that seem like a bit of a stretch to call it purely coincidence. And this is Disney after all. Our whole shtick is to take stories that already exist and transform them into something bankable, with tons of merchandise, complete with charting songs to ensure royalties for years and years to come. And Barbie is far from innocent when it comes to borrowing ideas. In fact, I'll be making a separate video for that in the future. Hopefully my points don't make me sound crazy, and maybe you'll agree with me after watching the video. Who knows? That's for you to decide. So enough beating around the bush. The movies in question today are Disney's Tangled and Mattel's Barbie as Rapunzel. Barbie's film came out 8 years before Tangled, and there are some interesting similarities. I made a list of them all, and I'll go through them in just a bit. But first, some backstory. You can skip ahead to the next section if you just want to get into the similarities right away. Okay, story time. When I was young, I didn't really have access to the internet. I grew up right about when dial-up was phasing out, and my mom really hated the idea of me being anywhere near the internet. Honestly, that was probably a good call. I don't think I had easy access to the internet until I was in middle school, which is pretty late for most kids these days, I assume. Also, there was no cable in my household growing up either. So all that was left to entertain myself were books, toys, console games, and movies. Lots and lots of movies. We had our fair share of both DVDs and VHS tapes back then. Of these, there were a few movies I'd cycle through over and over again. And Barbie films made up a pretty good chunk of this rotation. The first Barbie film I ever got was Barbie as the Princess and the Pauper. I remember waking up on Christmas morning to having the VHS tape under my own Barbie-themed mini-tree. And I think I also got an Annalise doll that year as well. How I wish I still had those things now. It was honestly probably the best Christmas haul I ever got. The gifts weren't crazy expensive, but the memories I got from those two gifts live with me to this day. I fell in love with Barbie, specifically the movies she starred in. I know that most people think really negatively whenever they hear Barbie's name, and it's even often used as an insult. Barbie is seen as the poster child of being fake, plastic, and an unattainable standard for girls. But personally, that cannot be farther from my own personal experience with her. I knew Barbie from her films, and I will still vouch to this day that for what they were, Mattel put a lot of heart into those movies. Obviously, they were a great way to advertise dolls based off of the characters. My Annalise doll I got for Christmas is proof of that. But most of the Barbie films that came out when I was growing up had a lot of heart and character. Each film had a moral attached to it that would be revealed in the end credits through a quote from Barbie herself. And usually the writers actually pull it off. So to me, Barbie is an admirable character who helped my imagination soar. The point I'm trying to make here is that I'm looking at this as both a fan of classic Disney and of Barbie films. Barbie as Rapunzel is the second CG film and was released in 2002. God, that was 20 years ago now. Jeez. It was the first thing that came to my mind when I heard the name Rapunzel. I loved it. Not my favorite Barbie movie, but definitely a classic. Fast forward 8 years, and then the Disney film Tangled came out in 2010. I was super excited about this movie. It was the first ever CG Disney princess film, and this was back when I was a bigger fan of Disney films. So of course I ended up watching it. And I thought it was great. It's a beautiful film, has great songs, thanks to Alan Menken, a true MVP and one of my favorite composers of all time. And in general, Tangled is just a heartfelt and funny movie. Honestly, I think it's the last time I truly fell in love with something Disney made. And I feel like it stood the test of time too. But now to finally address the title of this video, Tangled, though a great film in its own right, might have stolen or borrowed, whatever you want to call it, from Barbie. I didn't realize it until a few years later after seeing a random post online, but I've never been able to unsee it ever since. So without further ado, let's take a look at some of the similarities between these two films, shall we? I'm obviously not going to include similarities that stem from the fact that these are both adaptations of Rapunzel, so anything unique to the fairy tale will be left out. Also, both main characters are named Rapunzel, but to make things easier, I will refer to Barbie's Rapunzel as simply Barbie. And of course, there will be spoilers for both movies, obviously, so you've been warned. Number 1. Outfit similarities. Both versions of Rapunzel wear a pink and purple dress, and both love interests wear a blue vest with a white shirt underneath. Seems kinda minor, and it is for the most part, but we shall leave no stone unturned. I thought about including how both Rapunzels braid their hair at one point, but really, wouldn't everyone do that if they had hair that long? And I should know, because I've had super long hair most of my life. You can't really function without putting up your hair once it gets to a certain length. Number 2. Both movies feature a reptile sidekick. Tangled has a chameleon named Pascal, and Barbie has a dragon named Penelope. To be fair, this one is kind of a tiny detail, but I think it still needs to be said. And, to be fair, Penelope does sort of remind me of Spyro. Number 3. Now these are getting into the nitty-gritty. Both Rapunzels are artists, specifically painters. This is where it starts to seem less like a coincidence. Rapunzel as a fairy tale character is not usually characterized as an artist to my knowledge, and yet both of these films go that route, and painting of all things. Specifically on the wall, too. In Tangled, Rapunzel paints to pass the time, and her paintings end up jogging her memory to further the plot. In Barbie's film, Barbie also painted as a hobby, but after finding a magic paintbrush, she was able to paint anything she can imagine. So she uses this as a tool to escape from Gothel and explore the kingdom. And in a roundabout way, painting ends up being a catalyst for both Rapunzels to finally take a stand against Gothel. Barbie uses painting to escape to the outside world and learn of her true origins. And Rapunzel discovers through her paintings that she's actually the lost princess. And speaking of, number 4. Both Rapunzels are lost princesses stolen by Gothel. The Gothel in their own individual movies, to be clear, not one mastermind Gothel who exists in both universes. That would be quite the crossover. In Tangled, Gothel steals Rapunzel in order to use her magical powers to stay perpetually youthful. Whereas in Barbie's film, Gothel steals Barbie because Gothel was in love with the king and furious that he married someone else. The lost princess thing is not a part of the original fairy tale. Rapunzel's parents were peasants originally, and technically she wasn't stolen either. Rapunzel's father agreed to give away his firstborn child to a sorceress when he was frantically trying to feed his wife what she desired most. A bit convoluted, but to explain further, Rapunzel's mother would eat nothing but a leafy green plant named Rapunzel, and her husband needed the sorceress to get more for his wife. Long story short, both film adaptations of Rapunzel in this video changed the story in a very specific way. Now Rapunzel is a princess. A common trope, but a bit weird. Let's continue. Number 5. Both movies are narrated by one of the characters. In Tangled, Eugene is telling the story of Rapunzel to the audience. In the Barbie film, Barbie, as herself, a little bit confusing, but Barbie Roberts, the figure, tells Rapunzel's story to Kelly, and by extension, the audience. I didn't notice this one until I researched it a bit further, but it does check out. Some movies obviously have started with narration before. Heck, Megamind does that. But it's not super common, which does make the argument for Disney borrowing more compelling. There might be more similarities that I missed, but those are the most obvious ones. Individually, all of these similarities aren't really enough to make a solid case, but looking at all of them together, it does make you think a bit. So what do you think? Is this all merely coincidence? If not, are there more similarities I should have mentioned? Let me know. Once again, I do think these are very different movies. If Mattel did try to sue Disney over this, I have no doubt that they would lose the case, and not just because it's impossible to win against Disney. There's just not enough evidence to say for sure that Tangled stole ideas. And even if they did, it's different enough to be its own movie. That said, I wouldn't put it past Disney to borrow ideas. They have done it before, and I could see it being the case here. That's all for the video. This one was a bit shorter, but I can't put out long videos every single time. Hope you enjoyed it. It was fun getting to talk about Barbie. I've never gotten to do so on my channel before. And if you couldn't tell from watching, I'm still a huge fan to this day. So I'll probably be making at least a few more Barbie-themed videos in the future. If you'd like to see more videos from me, then please subscribe so you can join me for the ride to come. Don't forget to keep the magic in your lives. Till next time. Bye.